All right. So, good evening, everybody. And on behalf of Milan Cultural Organization, my name is Sharma, President of the Milan Cultural Association Connecticut chapter. On behalf of our Milan Parivar, I would like to welcome all our great speakers today, Dr. Raj, Bhyanai, Dr. Suresh Kumar, Dr. Vbhuti, Jaya, and Dr. Manisha, Sinha ji. Thank you so much for taking time and join. And we all know that we have our Connecticut well-known and today's moderator, Dr. Prasad and Dr. Jaya Vijaysekar. So we would like to start this discussion with I would like to give a background that Milan Cultural Association is a volunteer-driven organization, association of people from India living in the United States. This is a community service organization celebrating the traditional art and culture of India with mainstream America and our Indian diaspora. Milan have various chapters and members across the United States of America, and we are arranging this program in most of these chapters. Milan believes in sharing and caring for the mainstream American issues. A community we live in also supports, collaborates, and participates in all the mainstream and Indian diaspora events to foster constructive partnership and interactive relationship with mainstream local communities. And now I would like to request Jaya ji, Dr. Jaya, Vijaysekar, and Dr. Prasad also so proceed for today's. And before this, I would like to request our Milan chairman, Suresh Sharma ji, for opening comments and give us the guidelines for today's panel discussion. Thank you so much. And over to Suresh Sharma ji.
Thank you, Hari. And me, myself and Hari, along with our two esteemed moderators, we welcome the audience, those who are joining now, for being with us this evening. And looking into the basic topic, of this discussion, this election is very unique in itself this time because the way these elections were earlier, they were basically 2-3 issues, But this election is full of all the issues you can just imagine. Just think about, even the minority groups, are also very much targeted in this election. Besides, coronavirus is there, racism is there, environment is there. You just think of any issues. So we are really appreciating the speakers, and the panelists. They will be, sharing their thoughts. And for that, I would just like to introduce, first of all, these two moderators of ours, very esteemed one. First one is our Dr. Prasad Srinivasan. He's a allergist, by profession. But he has a lot of, experience in political arena. He's 4 times state representative in the Connecticut legislators. And also, he contested for the governorship, of Connecticut. The second one is Jaya Vijaysekar, highly involved in the field of education. Worked from teacher, to coordinator as a principal. And she was president of the Connecticut Council of Language Teachers. She's a linguistic, and she has a command on 5 languages. And she also, was having in 2010 chair of Northeast Conference on Teaching of Foreign Languages. So she currently is on the faculty of Eastern Connecticut State University, teaching Spanish and second language acquisition. Now it's a big opportunity for me to introduce our most important panelists. First one, Dr. Suresh U. Kumar. Dr. Suresh U. Kumar is the co-founder of Indian Americans for Biden-Harris, the largest Indian association of American pro-Biden-Harris group. He told me that in this group, there are 10,000, members. He is professor of innovation and entrepreneurship at New Jersey Institute of Technology. Previously, he was affiliated with Columbia and Rutgers University. He is also a successful serial entrepreneur with 3 ventures that was ranked among the Inc. 500 as the fastest growing firms. And he is a recipient of the Congressional Ronald Reagan Gold Medal for entrepreneurial leadership. Our second panelist, Dr. Bhyanai, is a renowned ENT surgeon in India who completed training in neurosurgery and fellowship in facial, plastic, and microvascular surgery. He has been acknowledged by Marquis, Who, and Healthcare, and awarded by USA Triologic Society for his research papers. Apart from being a prominent surgeon, Dr. Bhyanai is a devoted philanthropist, social activist, and entrepreneur involved in many events in and around New York. Especially, he was instrumental in organizing Honorable Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi's historic address to the Indian American community at Madison Square Garden, New York, when was his first, visit in America on September 2014. He promotes, Honorable Prime Minister Modi's initiatives resulted in remittance of funds to India. He works as an extremely exemplary example of his commitment towards India progress. Thank you very much, Dr. Bhyanai, for joining us.
Thank you.
We have Dr. Manisha Sinha. Dr. Manisha Sinha is a Draper Chairman in American History at the University of Connecticut and the Milan Distinguished Scholar in residence at the American Antiquarian Society for the current academic year. She received her PhD from Columbia University, where her dissertation was nominated for Bancroft Prize. She taught at the University of Massachusetts for over 20 years, where she was awarded the Chancellor's Medal, the highest honor bestowed on faculty. She's the author of Counter-Revolution of Slavery, Politics and Ideology of Antebellum, South Carolina, which is the University of North Carolina Press 2000, which was named one of the 10 best books on slavery and Politico in 2015 and featured in the New York Times 1619 project recently. Her second book, the multiple awards winning That was The History of Abolition, Yale University Press, was long listed for the National Book Award for nonfiction. She is the author and editor of numerous books and articles. She has lectured all over the world and written widely for the mainstream press, including the New York Times, the Washington Post, and Wall Street journals, as has been interviewed by the national and international press. A historian of long 19th century, her research interests lie specifically in the transitional histories of slavery, abolition, and feminism, and the history and legacy of the Civil War and Reconstruction. She is currently writing a book on Reconstruction of America, Democracy After the Civil War, under contract with Livelight. Thank you very much, Manisha ji, for joining us. We really appreciate you being with us. Our another, panelist, Vbhuti Jaya, has been at the forefront of driving Indo-US business relations ever since coming to the United States in 1991 in his role as a senior executive regional head with American Express Bank International. Vbhuti Jaya is, in his leadership role, lead the development of investment of NRI deposit program for expatriates, Indian living in the US to invest in India through the bank. Vbhuti Jaya organized the first ever Doing Business with India seminar series in Washington, DC in early 1992. This was the first major initiative of its kind designed to familiarize American corporations with India Corporation as a great investment destination. As a frequent, commentator on television and creator of boutique investment advisory, he advises clients on asset management, risk management, and investment management. Vbhuti Jaya is currently a principal with Ashcroft Sullivan Jaya. Among other activities, it offers EB-5 immigration programs for development of targeted economic areas. Vbhuti Jaya has made an indelible impact on ITV, articulating various aspects of Indo-US relationships in all dimensions relating to social, technology, economics, and politics, and how both countries can benefit from enhanced cooperation and interaction. He is invited to speak on Indo-US relations in various prestigious events. With all the panelists having been introduced, I would just pass on now, to our moderators to proceed further.
Thank you. Good evening. I want to thank Milan organization, Mr. Hari Sharma and Mr. Suresh Sharma for this very timely panel discussion that they have put together for us. It is indeed an honor for me to co-moderate this event with Mrs. Jaya Vijaysekar. I thank the four panelists for taking the time to be with us this evening, and all of us look forward to a very lively and a robust discussion. We have every right to disagree, and that's what a panel discussion is all about. But of course, as we all know, we cannot be disagreeable. The format of this evening's panel discussion will be Jaya and I have put together 6 various topics. As Mr. Suresh Sharma said, there are so many important subjects and topics to discuss. We have chosen 6 different panelist discussion topics, and each one of them will be 3 minutes will be given to 2 panelists that we will introduce, followed by 2 minutes for the other 2 panelists. So each question will probably take us in the ballpark of about 10 minutes. So when we look at the 6 different subjects we are covering, we hope to be able to do that in the time frame of an hour. I know there is going to be very lively participation from the audience, and the audience will be forwarding whatever questions you have, whatever subjects or topics we have not covered. Please feel free to send it to Mr. Hari Sharma, who then in the last 10-15 minutes of our evening's discussion, and we hope to conclude on time at 9 p.m., will be able to ask those various questions. Neither Milan organization nor the panelists had been given these questions ahead of time, and these various subject matters are being decided, talked about, and come across timely subject matters by Jaya and myself. So with this general guidelines, I would begin my first question. And the first question goes, for the 3 minutes, it goes to Mr. Kumar and Mr. Jaya. And the 2 minutes go to Sinha and Bhyanai. So Kumar will start, followed by Jaya, Sinha, and then Bhyanai in that order. And you know who has the 3 minutes and who has the 2 minutes. The most important subject matter for all of us, day in and day out, we are facing naturally is the pandemic, is the coronavirus. By all standards and all the measures that we see day in and day out, including today, unfortunately, the pandemic, the virus, is not behind us. And according to some accounts, the worst may be yet to come. Given that the next president and the administration, whoever they are, will have this problem, will have this task to face with. Given what the Trump administration knew, more importantly, knew but did not tell us, what is the status or the capability of the Biden administration with their track record during the Obama-Biden time with the influenza virus, which fortunately did not turn out to be so serious for them. They've had some experience in dealing with that. So given the realities of the coronavirus, the pandemic, and the unfortunate reality and the truth that the worst may yet be to come, which administration, in your mind, in your opinion, is transparent? And which administration, in your mind, in your opinion, is better equipped to deal with this pandemic and move our country in the right direction? So we will begin with Mr. Kumar, followed by Mr. Jha. Mr. Kumar.
Thank you, Mr. Srinivasan. I appreciate the question. Certainly, this is the most important issue that the nation faces. Before I answer, though, I wanted to thank the Milan organization for inviting me. Also, I wanted to thank my good friend, Dr. Thomas Abraham, chairman of GOPIO, who was the one who introduced me to Milan. So I have actually 3 debates happening in the next 3 days, and I thought it is important to be involved and share whatever information and knowledge that you're able to throw light as people go to vote, and importantly, on November 3rd, make the decision to cast their votes. So as far as the coronavirus is concerned, I want to first make it clear that it is actually not a blame to be thrown about to any party, because it is certainly not political. The virus goes after anybody who is a potential victim. But having said that, and as you rightly pointed out, Dr. Srinivasan, that Trump was aware of the virus back in February, as per his discussion with Bob Woodward. And he was also aware not only about it, but also the lethality of it as compared to the previous viruses. So he was extremely well informed, but he chose to lie to the public, right? And of course, now he says that he didn't want to scare people. And and I just want to remind you that this is a country that has gone to several world wars, where the presidents like Franklin Roosevelt and others told us what exactly the problem is. And we were able to face up to the challenge and overcome it repeatedly. So, in it just based on that, on the history of the nation, the fact that a president is not being truthful was itself, I think, a big, big blunder. I would like to again add that he has repeatedly, as I don't have to give further evidence, he's repeatedly downplayed the virus. If you go back right from February through, initially said it's going to be over by Easter, then he said it'll be over when the spring comes. And he's downplayed the scientists. He's not listened to the scientists. In fact, he's now sidelined. The task force is no longer in operation, right? He's, as you just have to watch any channel of news to know that scientists are not in charge. It is some crack
15 seconds, Dr.
doctor
Kumar.
from Stanford who's in charge. So again, I want to just make this case that if you just look at the numbers, US, the most powerful country in the world with the highest healthcare or the best healthcare so-called, is the number one or the worst country as far as combating this. 9 million cases and almost 227,000 people dead. I think just look at those numbers. And I just want to point one other thing, which is that there is a video of Obama, President Obama, saying back about approximately 7 years ago that a virus like this will come, and he had set up an advanced task force in China to combat this, which was dismantled by the Trump administration. So with that, I rest my case.
Thank you, Mr. Kumar. We will go to Mr. Jaya next. And Mr. Jaya, I would also like you to focus on how the next administration, whichever one it is, will give us a direction, a sense of direction to lead us out of the woods. Mr. Jaya?
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. And thank you for the Milan organization for inviting me. And I'm glad to be part of this. Now, coronavirus is something, I'm not a biologist, I'm not a doctor. Perhaps Dr. Bhyanai would have been a more appropriate person to speak on this because he's a physician. But I had the good fortune of knowing a doctor who has come on my TV program several times, who is the chief of medicine in one of the major hospitals in Smithtown. And he is also in charge of ICU, where he expanded the ICU from 12-bed ICU to 43-bed ICU. And he was day in and day out attending to coronavirus cases. And I asked him this question last evening, in addition to many conversations. Why did US have so many cases, and why there are so many deaths in the US? A powerful economy, a powerful country, the whole world looks at it. So as Suresh very rightly said, that it is not a party-wide issue, but let's call it one thing true, that it's a tragedy. It is very easy to be wise after the event. I mean, as a student of economics, I found biology questions were so easy after the exam was over because I came to know the answers. But it is so difficult, this accusation that Trump lied. You take the example at a very granular level. Each one of us can land into serious trouble with reference to our work and issues that family need not know. What do you tell your fat children? I'm in deep trouble at work, I'm going to be fired, or you are going to say that everything is fine, I'll take care of it. So there is a leadership role here. I mean, this doctor, I told us yesterday on the TV, he will be live on tomorrow's program. He said Dr. Fauci was the one who misled the whole country. And this guy is he's on record saying that. He also says very clearly that Trump was relying upon science. It's so crazy for Mr. Biden to say that I will rely on science, as if you and I rely upon voodoo. Who doesn't rely on science? But we do seek opinion, second opinion, third opinion. Economists, biologists, doctors, they all have different opinions on an issue that we face. Leadership's role is decision-making. I coach many CEOs around the world, and all we do is let them arrive at how to take a decision based on the expert opinion that inundate CEOs.
20 seconds.
So coming to the fact of how the next the group is going to deal, a lot of pathway has been already laid in terms of, creating a speedier way to do FDA approvals for vaccines and medicines. And the president who comes next will inherit a significant amount of work done already. And that's why I feel the next president would be a lucky president, because he will have solution on hand. Mask or no mask, individual decisions have to be made how to prevent and protect yourself. And that's the most important part. For anybody to blame Trump, let's look up the Democratic Party governors, 5 states, including my own state, New York, which accounted for 40% of the deaths and 40% of cases. They paid handsome tribute to President, saying that he did everything that he could, and the team was so well equipped to address the issues.
Thank you, Mr. Jha. I appreciate your answer. I would request the panelists to be very, very conscious of time. And when Jaya Vijaysekar, the co-moderator, tells you that we have 10 seconds less or 15 seconds less, please be very respectful of that so that we can end the program on time. And we are keeping track of total time that is spoken by each panelist. So as we go in the latter part of the evening, don't be surprised if your 3 minutes or 2 minutes have been cut down by a minute or two, because obviously we have to make sure that everybody gets adequate and balanced time. Having said that, I'll go off for 2 minutes now to Manisha Sinha. 2 minutes, please. Same question, 2 minutes. Yep.
Yep. Thank you for having me. Thank you to the Milan organization. I would just reiterate what Mr. Kumar said, that this virus was obviously not anybody's fault, but Trump's reaction to it, or rather no reaction to it, and his criminal incompetence and negligence in dealing with this virus has made us the laughing stock of the world. We have the highest cases, we have the highest mortality rate. The idea that somehow scientists and doctors are to blame, Trump recently said that doctors make money out of the death of patients, which I think most Indian Americans who serve very honorably in hospitals all over this country would take great offense at. He has indeed not listened to the scientists. He has not listened to the doctors, including those like Dr. Birx, who was ready to prostrate herself and even defend him when he recommended injecting yourself with Lysol. So Trump actually has been an abject failure. He has not built on the wonderful work that was done by the Obama-Biden administration in dealing with the SARS virus. The reason why we weren't so badly affected by it was not any miracle. It was a national team in place that listened to the science, listened to the doctors, and put a team in play in China that was taken away by Trump. So we were left defenseless against this virus because that team was put away. The idea that Trump listens to science, I think is somewhat laughable, or the fact that he has ever been truthful about this virus or anything else for that matter. I think that our country faces a grave challenge with the coronavirus and others, and the Biden-Harris team would be just phenomenally better than this criminal incompetence we have seen.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Dr. Sinha. I appreciate you being very conscious of time. And the final 2 minutes on this discussion on coronavirus, the floor belongs to Raj Bhyanai.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody, all panelists and the moderator for doing a wonderful job. This coronavirus crisis is one of the most unprecedented event in the modern history of humankind. Nobody has a magic bullet. Solution is a wrong approach, and it seems like a bipartisan approach than here, where the country has to unite for the one unifying approach for this crisis. Here, one person attacking other person attacking other, and blame game goes on. That is not going to help to solve the crisis. Now, let us come to the impact of the corona. One is medical impact, other one is economic impact. The medical impact, as lockdown, no lockdown, using masks, no using mask, use the plasma, or use the hydroxychloroquine, using remdesivir. Nothing has worked. So you can't blame the president for increasing number of cases. Number two, the actual death rate per million, not actually number of cases in the United States. If you look at the per million count of number of deaths all over the world, Europe has actually more deaths than America, not actual number of cases. Again, take that ratio very correctly. Now let's come to the economic impact. When the entire world is devastated, the only man who could keep the economy on track and make sure the people are getting money, there is a PPP, there is the payment, the payroll program, and then the EIDL, the loans for the businesses. That approach has worked extremely well. Vaccine will be out very soon with the warp speed. I think the overall response has been amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. And this, I will hand it over to my co-moderator, Jaya.
Thank you, Prasad. Thank you, panelists, and welcome. I just wanted to point out, Dr. Bhyanai, we had some trouble hearing you. So I don't know with your audio, please do check. So our next question will first go to Dr. Kumar and then to Dr. Bhyanai. And this deals with our environment and climate change. So the increased carbon and methane emissions and the resulting global warming will have a devastating impact on the American economy. Many areas of our country are being ravaged by catastrophic weather events brought about by climate change. So what do you think the administration should do to protect and preserve our environment and reverse some of reverse the trajectory really towards such destruction and preserve our environment for our future generations? So with that, we will start with Dr. Kumar.
Thank you, Jaya. I appreciate the question, a very important topic. So I think the first thing to do is to acknowledge the fact that climate change is real. I don't have to remind the panelists and the audience that President Trump called it a hoax not too long ago, when the reality is right in our face on a day-to-day basis, right? So the first thing to combat anything, whether it's a virus or a climate issue, is to acknowledge that it exists. And that basic test has not been passed by Trump. Secondly, every person that he's appointed into his cabinet, and especially the environmental folks, and there's been a few people who have changed there, but every one of them has been anti-environment or anti, I would say, EPA. And they have all made statements that the EPA is a meaningless body. Now, obviously, the EPA has been there for many years. In fact, it was a Republican President, George H.W. Bush, who really gave it a lot of teeth, right? And so this was a non-political issue, just like the virus. But after Trump came in, he kind of politicized everything. And I'm not sure, how do you politicize something just like an environmental issue? Because this is something you really cannot debate if you look anywhere in the world, including, I am from a state called Kerala in India. There has never been the kind of flooding that has happened the last 3 years continuously in that state, because it is a coastal state, right? So when it rains heavy, it goes right into the ocean. But even in that state, and so far away from where we are now, even in that place, and this is repeatedly happening all over the place. So the first thing is to acknowledge it. Secondly, appoint people who are competent, who can implement it. So I think these two steps have been the big downfall. And secondly, you must also support it with education, right? So in terms of investment in science and research and education, including STEM education, right from from school level, those are all areas that we have done. Finally, I would like to point out that we have backed out of what was a historic agreement, the Paris Climate Accord, which after a lot of negotiations, President Obama and, by the way, Joe Biden too, had put together, constructed. And this was definitely there were sacrifices the US had to make, but equally countries like India, Brazil,
15
all
seconds.
those big countries had to make concessions. That one, unfortunately, President Trump has taken us out of, which I think really is a big, big problem for us.
Thank you, Dr. Kumar. Appreciate it. Followed by Dr. Bhyanai's response.
Yes, I believe the environmental issues are real. There is no question about it. The question comes is what is the right approach to deal with it? And when the Paris Accord, which Dr. Kumar mentioned, it became very clear it was a very, very bad deal for America. As much as we can applaud for the deal made by Obama and Biden, it was an unfair deal for America because the more greenhouse effects is happening from China and unfortunately also from India, while they were held less responsible and America's share of the cutting back on the industries and our jobs and our economy was tremendous. And that is what President Trump realized. And that's why he backed off from this deal, because for the sake of passing the deal, as Dr. Kumar mentioned, a lot of concessions were given by America, and that was not acceptable. That would have harmed our economy, that would harm our jobs, and at the cost of our economy and the job, this accord cannot go on. So at the same time, some concrete effect needs to be taken, which should be more pragmatic rather than one-sided, where other factors or other countries which have more responsibility to take on. And once it's a fair deal, I'm sure America come back to the table and pass the new environmental deal, which is fair to everyone. And meanwhile, I think when the electric cars are coming along, the solar panels are coming along, wind power is coming along. So there is a push in that direction going on already, which is not stoppable. So some pragmatic, sure this accord is an approach is fair. I think that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Dr. Sinha.
Yeah, so I guess it's my 2 minutes now.
Yes, it is. 2 minutes. 2 minutes.
I will
Dr.
reiterate that it is a real tragedy that America pulled out of the Paris Climate Accord agreements. And I think it is really unfortunate when people put up an America first attitude to a global crisis and problem like climate change, or blame developing countries like India, who need to develop economically, for polluting the world. In fact, the United States is the largest emitter of greenhouse gases in the world. So I think blaming India and other developing countries is absolutely wrong. Besides, having an America first policy is even worse, because you cannot deal with a global crisis, especially when an overwhelming majority of the Republican Party does not believe in climate change. Just as they thought coronavirus was a hoax, as they belittle medicine, as they belittle experts, they have belittled environmentalists and scientists, an overwhelming majority of whom have been warning us about the terrible cost of climate change that is actually affecting countries like India horribly. We have taken positions, they haven't. The idea that we have a zero-sum game between the environment and the economy is another talking point of the Republican Party, which is absolutely untrue. We do not want to go back to the 19th century with a dirty environment and industrializing using fossil fuels. In fact, a green economy can create many good green jobs. And the Obama-Biden administration gave tremendous impetus to both electric cars and to solar industry, all rolled back by Trump. Trump says, oh, I love clean air. Well, we all do love clean air and clean water, but his regulations have all rolled them back. They roll back everything that the EPA has done. They have made our water unsafe, our air unsafe, and basically they have proven to be the most incompetent administration in the history of the United States.
Thank you, Dr. Sinha.
I will straight away get in.
Within time, and going on to Mr. Jha. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I see an incessant attack on incompetency of the administration, including calling the administration a criminal intent. Now, let's not get into that. We have no evidence. And in this country, we know the rule of law, that unless it is proven in the court of law, even OJ walks. So let's kind of be a little reasonable with we are in a civilized discussion. Let's not hurl stones when people live in the glass houses. And that's true about Democratic Party as well, because they create the inconvenient truth of living in the glass house. Al Gore talked about inconvenient truth. Nobody says climate is not changing or the impact is not happening. As Dr. Bhyanai said, it is what suits me. And countries that have developed more and more, it's about the prioritization, which is very important. My professor friend from Sweden, one of the universities, he believes in climate change, but he talks about prioritization. What's my need? What's your need? And he prepared a brilliant example, which I've seen and I've witnessed to that Haiti's needs of climate requirement are different than American need and India's need and Sweden's need. So unless and until we agree on the prioritization of the factor, it doesn't help. To talk about to reduce CO2 emissions by 2050, we do not know what might change from now till 2050, and the goalposts may shift forward. And we also know that technology advances in a remarkable way. When I came to this country in 91, we used to pay $3.50 for a call to India. Today, FaceTime is free. We are communicating globally for free. Think about the technological impact, and I'm 100% sure technology will come up with the solutions to the climate challenge with the electric cars and alternate energy. I'm 100% sure. The question is, if we are able to prioritize, and if people are willing to sacrifice food, how we consume food, it might lead to a better solution to the climate change in a global way, in a global agreement way. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jha. Appreciate all of your responses, panelists, and I'd like to pass it over to Prasad for the next question.
Our next topic that we would like to talk about is the racial divide in our nation. Most of us feel that racial divide, the racial discrimination, unfortunately, is at its highest. Most of us, as I see in the panelists, have come to this country decades ago. We have seen presidents of both sides of the aisle, but we never felt in the 40 plus years that I've lived in this country, we have never felt this intensity of the racial discrimination and divide. Why then is there this increasing fear among the minorities, including the Indian Americans? We will begin the panel discussion for 3 minutes with Dr. Sinha, followed by Dr. Bhyanai, and then for 2 minutes, we will have Kumar and Mr. Jha. Dr. Sinha?
Thank you. So as an Indian American who studies African American history, this is, of course, a very important question for me. And I can talk about it from a historical perspective and also the appalling way in which Trump has actually incited white supremacy in this country that has been unfortunate, not just for Black Americans, but all immigrants of color, including Indian Americans. You know, when I call him criminally incompetent, I'm being polite because he has called Kamala Harris a monster. He has actually referred to Mexicans as rapists and criminals. I remember when I came to this country and I was doing research in South Carolina, a highly Republican state, Hinduism was called devil worship. These are his followers. This is his base. And I think most Indian Americans should be well aware that we should not in any respect or fashion support a man who inflames and incites racial hatred. Trump actually makes things always worse. It is our misfortune that we have been confronted with so many huge crises, with him being accidentally the president. And I think it is very, very important for Indian Americans. Look at the Indian American man, a grandfather who was attacked by the police and who sustained life-threatening injuries. We are involved in this. This is our country. We need to create the multiracial, tolerant society that we want to see. Trump's anti-immigrant, racist, misogynistic statements have been extremely hurtful and divisive in this country. He has poured oil on fires rather than calming things down, as is his style. And I think for Indian Americans, we should recognize that for African Americans, this has been an extremely long struggle, first against slavery and then Jim Crow. We come with a lot of privileges. We are going to the best universities. We are all professionals and we do well. We become a kind of a model minority. But for African Americans, subject to poor neighborhoods, bad schools, police brutality, it really is an awful struggle. And I have read this historically, the wealth differentials in this country are not accidental. It's not, as Jared Kushner says, that Black Americans don't want to be successful. That's a slap in the face of many African Americans who have struggled against the worst odds to simply survive slavery and Jim Crow in this country. So as Indian Americans, I think we need an administration like Biden-Harris that is representative of the country, and that'll be good for our race relations.
Followed by Bhyanai, Raj.
Thank you. I think the mainstream media and narrative about this racial divide and blaming, as again in last 4 years, anything goes on in this country, everybody likes to blame President Trump, no matter what happens anywhere in any issue. First and foremost, this is the president who came to Indian event in New Jersey, and he said, I love Hindus and I love Indians. And he has proven again and again by his action, by his going to India, by coming to a Howdy Modi event, Namaste Trump event. He has shown the affinity for Indians. So we can't really say that he's against Indians at all. Coming to the Democrats and then Black Lives Matter. So Black Lives Matter is same slogan as Congress party have in India, Garibi Hatao, where they actually don't do anything. They just make an issue. If Black Lives Matter really matter to Democrats, all the states where blacks are actually suffering, let's take in New York, Maryland, Illinois. Who is ruling those states for the last 50 years? It's all Democrats. And how are the lives of blacks in those states? Absolutely poor. And why? And who is to be blamed? President Trump. Goes on. And who is the mayor? Is Democrat. And who is the governor? Is a Democrat. What's happening in Baltimore? Why there is so much of shootings? The half of the police force in Baltimore is black. And the Maryland is ruled by Democrats over the years after years. And in spite of that, they have done nothing for black people. In fact, if you look at the Heritage Foundation report, during Obama's times, the racial relations between blacks and whites actually became the worst ever in the history of America. And in fact, as President Trump says, Obama created the Trump because of these all racial divides which were happening between blacks and white people. Coming to the police brutality, same thing. And the other issue which we're talking about is the Mexican borders and the immigration. The highest deportations actually happened during Obama time. Only thing is Obama did it quietly and Trump likes to talk. So that's his fault. But you can't really talk, has nothing to do with it. What matters at the end of the day is the action and the outcome. So especially the people's, now Democrats want to take down the wall and they want all these people from South enter freely. Do we really want that to happen in this country. The legal immigration is good, illegal immigration is not good. That's all I say.
Thank you, Mr. Kumar. And then I will conclude this panel discussion on this subject matter on this topic with Mr. Jaya, and you have 2 minutes.
I thought
Thank
Suresh
you,
was-
Mr. Srinivasan. So you asked a question, or rather you made a statement that under various presidents, we have had race relationships fairly managed. So what has changed these last 3 years? Well, it's no surprise. It's Trump has become the president, right? And it could be a reaction to uh, Barack Obama having been elected as president. There was this small group who really didn't want to see a person of color be the president. And that is the reason why you have seen that. But fortunately, it's a small minority in the country. And hopefully we can keep it at that. But I wanted to add to what Dr. Manisha Singh mentioned, that Trump's behavior goes much before he became president, right? And those of you who have been following know what he did about the Central Park Five, where 5 young African-American youth who were suspected to be in the case of a killing of a jogger in Central Park. And he took out a 1-page ad when they were not yet charged, saying that they were at fault. Later, evidence proved that the crime was done by somebody else. So you could see that. And even before this, his father has been indicted by the DOJ for discrimination against African-American tenants when he was a landlord. So it runs in the family, right? And all of you know what happened about after he's taken over. He started this campaign with that comment that Dr. Sinha mentioned. You know about Charlottesville, and that's frankly the turning point for, at least personally for me. That is the point I made it clear that I am a naturalized citizen, I'm sure like all of you. In my oath of citizenship, I did mention that, and I remember it very clearly because I went back and checked it, that you have got a duty to stand up against enemies, both foreign and within the country. And from that day, I made a post, and in fact, an op-ed on India Abroad then, that I would no longer call him president, because I refuse to accept what I can only conclude that he's a racist. I cannot accept him to be a president, right? So, and that's where I stand. And in fact, I was laughing at the statement, he comparing himself to Abe Lincoln, who saved, who's kind of abolished slavery. I mean, that is the biggest joke I've ever heard in my life. Really? I mean, how can you even talk in the same sentence, these two people? I mean, that is a big joke. And I don't know Abraham Lincoln personally, but I've read a lot of books about Abe Lincoln. And I can tell you this, Mr. Trump, you're no Abe Lincoln. So with that, I conclude my comments.
I almost listening to Honorable Dr. Sinha and Suresh Kumar, I begin to feel I'm listening to an MSNBC hype and the lines of the conversation. But be that as it may, I do not know. Do you remember, Suresh, who called blacks the predators? It was Joe Biden.
Mm-hmm.
Now, here is one thing important to remember, is the fact that racism, we began with an issue on racism, which is a good issue to talk. But to bring in Trump as if he is the responsible for all that is happening is sort of foolish and sad. I'll put it this way, because racism is a function of likes, dislikes, biases that we all have within us. It's a human nature. If any one of us here denies 100% that we have no bias, no likes, no dislikes, then I know that they are liars. That exists. I have one thing which I do agree, is that African Americans came to this country as slaves. They did not come like you and I did. They did not come here even jumping the wall like the Mexicans did, or the illegals who are coming here. And they are accorded far greater facility in the country than the blacks as slaves were ever accorded. So there is a genuine grievance there, and I side with that, because I cannot experience slavery mentality, and that's a chip that needs to be broken completely. But to put it on Trump, there's one very interesting element. This is the man who has not started a war in last as many years in his presidential run. Number one. Number two is a very important part. What is his profession and what is his occupation? He builds golf courses, he builds hotels, he builds residential complexes. And he needs people of all kinds to work with him.
Seconds.
And that's where it is important that his lifestyle is about building, building, and building. Whoever delivers the best. For him, as I have known him, he has no problem with anyone so long as he delivers the work. It's not about racism. It's not about black. It's not about discrimination. Sad to say this, but people, you and I must recognize this element quickly.
Thank you very much. And I want to thank the panelists for being very aware and conscious of time. And we are definitely moving forward. And I will now request my co-host Jaya with the next very important subject for the panelists.
Thank you, Prasad. So the next question, we're going to be focusing on healthcare. And we will be starting with Dr. Sinha, followed by Mr. Jha for 3 minutes, and then to Dr. Kumar and Dr. Bhyanai for 2 minutes each. So the landmark legislation of the Obama-Biden administration is Obamacare. Getting rid of Obamacare has been the goal, the mantra of both the Trump administration as well as the Republican Party. Obviously, that has not happened. For the 3rd year in a row, the premiums have reduced. So which administration moving forward, in your opinion, is better equipped to handle the healthcare needs of our country? And I will turn the floor to Dr. Sinha.
Thank you. So I will just begin by saying that the Trump administration's attempt to dismantle Obamacare or the Affordable Care Act is another very, it's in fact not just a careless move, it's a criminal move when people are suffering so much to remove healthcare in the middle of a pandemic. He has been saying he has a healthcare plan, just as apparently he has an environmental plan. And if you think we are like MSNBC, I feel as if I'm hearing Fox News and QAnon conspiracy theories, because he has no healthcare plan. All he wants to do is dismantle and destroy. I've been told that he's a businessman, well, a very failed businessman, in debt for nearly $1 million. Has charged the United States government to prop up his failing bankrupt business and has in fact gotten sweet deals from Deutsche Bank and others. So he's failed as a businessman and he's failed as a president. He does not have a healthcare plan. He's only destructive. All he wants to do is destroy what has been put in place. Now, let's get this clear. Republicans have been shouting socialism since FDR got the New Deal, since Lyndon B. Johnson got Medicare and Medicaid, and they're shouting socialism now that Obamacare is there. And actually, it's not at all that. In fact, most of the programs in Europe are far more rigorous. And I must correct some misinformation that was told earlier about indices for healthcare, et cetera. Go look it up. The worst states in the union in terms of health, education, literacy achievement are the red states in the South, the former Confederacy, and they are also the base of the Republican Party today. I should also correct the misconception that somehow our deaths per millions are actually better than Europe. No, if you look at Germany, it's done far better than us in every respect. So we don't have a national plan. In fact, even in India, a poor country, crowded country like India, Prime Minister Modi could develop a national policy and put it in place. Trump is even incapable of doing that. And those who keep touting Modi's relationship with Trump, I would tell them, please go to YouTube, listen to President Obama's speech, the only American president to visit India twice. Listen to his speech to the Indian Parliament. As a historian, I could not believe the man's appreciation for both Indian culture, civilization, and Hinduism and the United States. So I'm using my time, which I know was directed towards healthcare policy, but I'm using my time to say that this notion that somehow Trump has a special in to India is absolutely wrong.
Thank you, Dr. Singh. Thank you so much. We will move to Mr. Jha
Thank you. Thank you very much. And I will take the cue from Dr. Sinha respectfully that, it's not healthcare, it is Trump and Modi relationship. So, as an experienced, as an immigrant to this country, as an expat of American Express Bank, I was having the privilege of perhaps one of the finest healthcare programs that corporates offer. So I have been understanding the thing, but I have no clue about it. I only know one thing for sure, that I remember a doctor friend of mine from San Francisco in 1991, he told me after Clinton won, he says, हम लोगों ने इतने पैसे कमाए हैं कि कुछ होना चाहिए, हम बेहिसाब पैसे कमा रहे हैं. There is no end to this nonsense the way we make money. I was astonished that he was making a confession with me, talking with me. He said, hope Bill Clinton's do something about it. Nothing happened. I have ever since been 1991, I have been hearing, let's fix Washington. All presidential candidates say fix Washington. Nobody did anything about it. The one man in 2016, he began to take on the swamp was this guy, Donald Trump. Think about it, drug price reduction. I mean, these are some of the ridiculous examples, if I give you from the personal experience point of view, that a medicine that, costs, you pay $150 as copay here is available for $20 in India. And this is azithromycin I bought in a 5-star hotel for $1.10, which you pay $20 a year. Drug price control. That's what Trump has done. The man believes in action. Now that is important to understand. Healthcare is an issue which I'm astonished that Nancy Pelosi has said about the Affordable Care Act. We will know what is in it after it is passed. I'm not lying. This is not Fox line. It is MSNBC line, and it is the world must know about it. Nancy Pelosi had said that only after it is passed, then we will know what is in it. There are honorable doctors in this forum, and I'm sure they can vouch for it. Healthcare, I feel, is an issue that needs to be addressed in the best possible way. Do I have the solution? Certainly not. Does Trump have a solution offhand? Nobody knows. But what we do know is that Obama continuously lied about it, that you can keep the doctor, your premiums will not go. Does anybody remember that? And what is the socialist plan? Is to socialize the entire medicine thing, which will not work in the American conditions, where there is a federal law and there is a state law. These are all matters of state law, who wants to have what. So this matter is, in my opinion, I'm a layman in this matter, but I do know one thing for sure, that Democrats don't have a plan, and Trump does have a plan, which we will know as soon as this happens, just like Nancy Pelosi said.
Thank you, Mr. Jha. So we are going to move for 2 minutes to our next two panelists, starting with Dr. Kumar.
Thank you. So I think Mr. Jha mentioned about the Trump plan. I guess we will know about it when we hear about the plan for the virus, because frankly, 4 years and till now, he's been promising and promising and promising, and nothing has happened, right? So obviously there is no plan. And ACA, by the way, may not be the best possible plan available, but it did really, and I don't have the exact numbers, I believe it's about 20 million or so people who were not previously covered has been covered by this. And especially in an environment like this, when you have a pandemic, it has been a tremendous blessing for millions and millions of people, right? So it was very clear that that was the best deal possible, given the give and take of politics. That was the best possible deal that could be put on the table by the Biden administration. And the goal was always to slowly keep improving it, right? And that is something exactly what Joe Biden has promised to do. You have the plan. You also, nobody's going to take away your insurance plan. I'm not part of ACA, but I have a great plan. There's no need for me to get into the ACA. But if I were in a situation that I do need the help of ACA, that is available, right? And that's the purpose of it, right? And so, having said that, I also would like to mention that I think Dr. Sinha mentioned about India having a better healthcare, more availability of healthcare in terms of government supported plans, etc. So that is exactly where we want to go to, because healthcare, frankly, should not be an optional, not be an option only for the rich. It's got to be a policy where we should be taking care of people who are not able to take care of themselves. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kumar. Appreciate it. And finally, the last word to Dr. Bhyanai.
Sure, thank you. So the cost of insurance, which we're talking about, which earlier panelists mentioned, is going down. It's a lie. If you, because it's you got to look at the sector wise, the employer based health insurance plan, the cost has gone up 5% for the family and 3% for the individual. So let's not play with the numbers and play the gimmicks here. Doctors, the major issue, the malpractice reform. Democrats are hell-bent to kill it each and every time when it comes to the table. All my colleague doctors on here, aren't you feeling a little bit sad about it? That you support democratic healthcare plan, and when time comes to support our doctors for the malpractice reform, you have no concern about it. In fact, one of the single most reason all our doctor physicians are suffering and they have burnout because of the pressure of this malpractice, the hurdles created by the Accountable Care Act, so much of paperwork. The physician burnout has gone to the extreme, and the individual or private practices have been killed because there is a push that all the physicians have to join with the big organization. This is a plan which killed the doctors, individualism, private practices. They've been forced to sell the practices to the big chains, the insurance companies, the Walmart, and then your Walgreens opening the dispensaries. Where are the doctors? And this all the voice of doctors taken away by the Obamacare. And what do you have to say about it? And if India's healthcare was better, people will not be rushing in here to get the healthcare here. So that's a myth that India's healthcare is better. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Bhyanai. Appreciate it. And I'm gonna pass it over to Prasad.
The next subject for our panel discussion, we thought we'd bring up, and it has already been brought up in different ways in our conversation already, is to talk about our economy. We all feel, and there are economic indicators, that this economic disparity, the rich getting richer, the poor getting poorer, and the middle class somewhere or the other disappearing, unfortunately, this disparity is getting wider. The probability of a lockdown, partial or a complete lockdown, unfortunately could be a reality given where we are with the virus that we've already covered as the first discussion on the panel. So this is an important aspect for the future administration. How are the administration, under whose leadership are we better equipped to make sure that this disparity, the economic divide, we talked about racial divide, the economic divide does not get wider. We will begin with Mr. Jaya and Dr. Sinha. Both of you will get 3 minutes, and then followed by Raj, Bhyanai, and Kumar, who both will get 2 minutes. And after that, the final question that we had planned will be with Jaya. So we'll begin with Mr. Jaya.
Thank you very much. Is one of the real engines of the growth of the world around us. As the largest consumer nation, just as a comparative point, we are 3 times larger than India, and we have 1/4 the population. We are a very resource-rich country. We have reasonably great infrastructure in place, and that is the strength of this economy. Insofar as knowing full well that there will be a very quickly an attack that Trump has mismanaged the whole thing, I want to say only one thing very simple. Economy has been doing great in this country. It has gone through the economic policies of each government that they have taken. But when Trump took over, there were certain things which I remember very distinctly clear. Paul Krugman, a Nobel Prize winner, economist, wrote in Wall Street Journal that this economy will tank if Trump were to become the president. When Trump was talking about bringing manufacturing back, manufacturing back and money back, Obama had chided him by saying he doesn't have a magic wand. Now he turned those things around. He did show that he has the magic wand. He had the magic wand. He did brought about the tax plan. You can say about benefiting rich or poor, but in this country itself, we have an opportunity for everybody. The American dream is not about a Ferrari and a beach house, a beachfront house. American dream is about everybody able to live a respectable life, a middle-class life, which is very important. So Trump showed that economy boomed. And this economy has to be seen into two clear perspectives of post and pre-coronavirus. Pre-coronavirus economy, we all know that if coronavirus had not happened, regardless of the market correction, US was going great guns. Disparity was, you have to bring the catch-up scenario. People are becoming more and more wealthier. Income was increasing, employment was great for Blacks, Latinos, all category of people. So unless and until you provide people to learn how to fish, the plantation mentality of the Congress, of the Democratic Party will only impoverish more and more people. So the plantation mentality, for example, what worries me is not the policy, but the prescriptions that they give. So when Biden announced recently that I will put Muslims in all levels of my administration, what upset me was not that he was talking about Muslims. I would have been equally uncomfortable if he had said he will put Hindus in in all administration, or a caste specific, religious specific, or a specific ethnicity. These are dangerous portents for the country, because you make a divide and rule as an official policy. And that's what is sad about it. If this economy is great economy, the only thing that what needs to be done is
Thank you, Mr. Jha.
You make your priority and run the system. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Jha. We appreciate your comments. For 3 minutes, Dr. Sinha, on the economic divide and the plan for the administration.
Absolutely. I do think that economic disparities in this country have reached unsustainable level. Let us not even talk about Trump's record on the economy. Unlike Mr. Jha, I know that it was really the Obama-Biden administration that brought this country out of the worst recession since the Great Depression. They brought this economy out and they set it on a path of success. Of course, then we had Trump, who inherited this booming economy and quickly took credit for it. Of course, he has bankrupted his own business. Now he's going to bankrupt the United States of America. The COVID crisis was not something that he could foresee, but his irresponsible, huge tax cuts to billionaires, precisely the kind of guys who have Ferraris and beachfront homes, have actually created an enormous deficit and have created a complete weakness in our economy. He measures economic success by Wall Street. I know that he keeps pumping money into Wall Street to keep it afloat, but that's not how we measure economic success. It is, in fact, the success of middle-class people, professional people like Indian Americans who pay their taxes. We are salaried people who pay taxes, unlike Trump, who is really rather crooked and has paid $750 to the United States government and $188,000 to the Chinese government. And this is the man who has the cheek to talk about being tough on China. China, it wants Trump to win. They want a weak America. They want an America where the middle is. We think that it is really important for a democratic administration to set this economy right, to address those inequalities, because the strength of the economy is in fact measured by the American dream, which was, and his New Deal, that inaugurated the American people who could buy their own home, have a decent job. Instead, since the 1980s, the Republicans have cut down on regulations, cut down on taxes so much.
Followed by Dr. Kumar. Raj, 2 minutes.
Again, too much of a smoke and no substance, then that doesn't work well. When you look at the economic indicators, you look at what Trump has done over the years in last 4 years. First, of course, there was a unprecedented tax cut. Two, there was also tremendous spending. Three, the interest rates at the by the what has all it has done when President Trump took actually the presidency, people said this is the highest unemployment we can have in the country. But after the last 3 years, unemployment even went down to 3.2%. From 1999 till 2016, the average income increased only by $257. And from 2016 to 2019, average household income increased by $6,000, $257 and $6,000. So go figure who's doing better with economy. Now coming to New England Journal of Medicine, it is unfortunate that when the academic medicine and the research, this institute gets involved in the politics. So now there will be Democrat journals and there will be Republican journals. This is what we want to see in medical field. It is extremely unacceptable, unfortunate that medical field journal with scientific journals are endorsing the political candidates. What they want out of it? Some political favors when Biden gets elected as a president and the journal editors wants to have some seat at the White House. This is shameful that this happened. The journal is endorsing a political candidate. Thank you.
And finally, thank you, Raj. And finally, for 2 minutes, I will go to Dr. Kumar. Dr. Kumar.
So my quick reaction is that Trump's view of the economy is from Park Avenue looking onto Wall Street, right? The Main Street has been completely not in his sight at all. And I want to maybe start with dispelling a myth that Trump is an entrepreneur or a businessman, right? That is one of the reasons why I guess a lot of people believed and he was elected as president. But if you look at his record, and anybody can Google this, 6 bankruptcies, right? Not 1 or 2. I can ask maybe this panel, how many of you have bankrupt companies? 6. And these are all huge bankruptcies, mostly because he could not pay his vendors or his lenders and mismanagement. Then there was about 20 failures. This is on top of the bankruptcies. There were 20 businesses that just failed because it was just not good business. The second myth is that Trump is a self-made man, right? And we all know from recent reporting that he got $400 million from his father as a gift to start his business. Now, I teach entrepreneurship, and one of the definitions of entrepreneurship is that you start without resources and you build those resources. That's my basic definition of entrepreneurship. So he does not meet that basic definition of who an entrepreneur is, right? So I want to dispel that myth completely. There's also this myth that he's a tough guy, but we all know that he avoided military draft because of that bone spurs, which was non-existent. But that, keeping that aside, I want to also talk about the post-COVID. Now, although the economy was doing well,
Kumar, Mr. Kumar, you have about 10 seconds left.
Yes. So I just wanted to mention that unemployment as it stands today is 8%. 22 million people lost jobs. And there is about 2 million businesses affected, 400,000 closed. That's the reality, primarily because of the response to the coronavirus. So it has a real impact on the economy. So leadership matters.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Kumar. It was indeed a very lively, a very robust discussion that we had among the panelists sharing their views. And I will hand it over to Jaya to say a few words to the panelists and then over to Hari Sharma. Jaya, take it away.
Thank you so much, Prasad. I want to thank each one of you, Dr. Kumar, Dr. Bhyanai, and Dr. Sinha, and Mr. Jha. We really appreciate as Prasad mentioned, the lively discussion, it's by airing views on both sides is how we come to some common understanding and actually understanding the issues better. So I think you gave, I'm sure, our audience a lot to think about. And I want to thank Milan, especially for this timely discussion. We want to thank you for your time, panelists. We appreciate your honesty and your lively debate. So I'm going to hand it over to Hariji, please.
Thank you, Jaya ji. Today I was in meeting and someone asked me, let's conclude, it's 5 p.m. on Friday. And it's almost 9 p.m. and it's so energetic. And we are grateful for our honorable moderators, Dr. Prasad, Srinivasan, and Dr. Jaya Vijaysekar, from bringing such a synergy, keeping discussion on track, and really great questions, covering current topics timely. Hopefully this will help to take our right decision. Now, this program was not possible without our such awesome speakers. Bhyanai ji, Suresh Kumar ji, Vbhuti ji, and Manisha Sinha ji for sharing their experience, data. And I would like to thank our audience for joining us on various social media. Right now, this program is broadcasting live on. We have a lot of viewers right now because I am sorry to say that I was doing multitasking because I was taking the notes and some questions from various social media like Facebook, YouTube, in Zoom. So thank you so much, all of you, for joining us and enjoying today's discussion. But unfortunately, because I got a lot of questions, I made the laundry list, but unfortunately we are not able to take because of the time constraint. Definitely, we know the speaker, if someone is interested, we can pass on the detail and you can reach out to us. So now in this point of time, I would like to request our Milan chairman, Suresh Sharma ji, to conclude today's discussion. Over to Sharma ji.
I really, thanks to the panelists for this is such a discussions, which is very powerful. It's a lot of, interaction, a lot of challenges. And on top of it, it's very much thought-provoking, discussions which we had over here. Looking into the time constraint, actually, so because it is to be 9 o'clock, we have to. But one thing, we can think about, when there is a positive, criticism, something, comes out very good, very productive. And this is what happened. When we looked into all those questions, and the way the interaction took place, it's very thought-provoking. So thank you very much, panelists. We are really grateful for your time and the energy which you have put in this discussion. And Milan is very, very much, thankful to you, and have a good night.
Yeah,
Thank you,
so
Mr. Suresh.
just now I got the, I think, message from one of the speakers, and I believe that they would like to go 1 minute each for concluding remarks, if our moderator permits. So I'm leaving up to our Dr. Prasad and Jaya ji, the way you would like to do.
Jaya, if with your kind permission, I think it's a fabulous idea. I'm very, very, aware and conscious of time, and we do have this extra 4 minutes because our speakers were so professional in keeping up to time. So Hari, I would definitely appreciate going with that ending with a concluding comment by each panelist, and you can go in any particular order that you want, Hari. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you
Absolutely.
so much, Prasad, but I would like to keep my postman duty. So here, I would like to go with the Raj, Bhavani ji, and then Suresh Kumar, Vbhuti Jha, and Manisha.
So it is not the President Trump as a person who is going for the election. He is a president, so look at his accomplishments, not his personal flaws or what he says. And I think that is very, very important. The accomplishments and the changes which he has brought in 4 years have not been seen in last 50 years. So we recommend and urge that President Trump is a really good candidate to vote for. Having said that, I really thank and appreciate all my panelists, Dr. Kumar, Dr. Manisha Singh, especially both of physicians, and of course the moderator, Dr. Prasad Srinivasan and Manisha Sundaramji. You have done amazing work of the format, and Suresh Sharma ji, kudos goes to you because you are the first guy at the presidential debate, actually. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Who's next?
Hariji?
Yeah, I think that we can go with this same. So Dr. Suresh Kumar ji, then Vbhuti.
Certainly. Thanks for accepting my request for this 1 minute, because I think it's important to conclude our thoughts. And I wanted to use this time to remind the viewers as to what is at stake, because you have been hearing all this comments that this is the most important elections in our life. I want to just mention, going back to history, that America was the first so-called new nation, right? It is where immigrants came from all over the world and created a new nation. And people, since 1620, when the Mayflower landed, since then, for the past 400 years, immigration has been happening. And the best of the world has been coming to this country, which is what has made it the greatest country on earth. And following that, there has been the American Revolution, the Constitution of the US, which gave power to the people, the separation of powers, the democracy, the freedom of religion, and the opportunity. So this is all what makes this country so great. And that's, I can guarantee that's the reason why you and I am here. So that is what is at stake. So please take that seriously, take comments of all the people who spoke today, and please make your vote. And I think that is going to make us a stronger country. Thank you.
Just to say thank you very much, everybody. It was a great time. And I would like to say two things. One is, a Vietnamese friend of mine yesterday told me that certain percentage of Vietnamese are going to vote for Trump, because we know we came from a China brutality, we came from a socialist environment. We don't want this democratic party to return this country back to socialist practices. And that was and he was surprised that you Indians are so successful here. Why would you go back to socialist practices again? Because in the democratic rule, that's what is going to happen. That's number one. Number two is the fact that we Indians are a very loved people in this country. As one senator once told me, we love you Indians as immigrants to this country. You are hardworking, you are professionals, you are the highest median income, you take care of your family, you have family values, you take care of your children, you are least problem from the law and order perspective, and you ask for nothing. This is the time, this is the first ever time that the Indian vote is going to count, and make it count. Because what is important is not us alone, but who is better for India. Kamala Harris, who has been charging on India for faulty, stupid matters, that's a conversation for another day. So think before you vote. Who is good for India and for us?
Thank you, Vbhuti ji. And I would request now Manisha ji to conclude.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Suresh and Hari Sharma, for having us. And thank you for the moderators for conducting this so professionally. I will reiterate what Mr. Kumar said. American democracy is on the ballot. That even Dr. Bhyanai cannot defend the character of his candidate is actually interesting. Character matters, leadership matters. I think it is a matter of tremendous pride to the Indian American community to have Kamala Harris break barriers. Here we are, indeed, we are a model minority, and the first woman ever to hold such high office in the United States should be of Indian descent is a matter of tremendous pride. Joe Biden has been a strong supporter of India. President Obama was the one who welcomed Mr. Modi back to the international community. And I think their policies would benefit India the most, and having Kamala Harris at the highest level would be extremely important for us. The idea that the Democratic Party is a socialist one is actually rather laughable, because it was Harry Truman, a Democratic president, who actually began the policy of containing communism in the world. So we must remember the past achievements of Democratic presidents that have in fact inaugurated the American century and that have always worked for ordinary people and for immigrants like us, Indian Americans. And we must realize the commonalities that we have as Indians with the American Democratic Project. India needs a strong, rational America to save us from all kinds of threats. And to have a dysfunctional, incompetent United States government will not help us. We need somebody like Joe Biden and Kamala Harris to lead the United States and, in fact, to make us proud as Indian Americans.
Thank you so much, Manisha ji. And we are a couple of minutes over, but we did not realize it's 9 o'clock. So again, thank you so much, our honorable moderators, Dr. Prasad, Jaya ji, as well as our great speaker, to make this today, Friday, a great day, and have a nice weekend. Take care of yourself, stay safe, and we will see you soon. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you. Good night.
Bye.
Good night. Good job, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks.